I remember the first time I saw Nicholas. It was a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the leaves crunch underfoot and the air carries a hint of wood smoke. He was unloading his car, his movements fluid and confident, as if he belonged in this quaint neighborhood from the very beginning. His art supplies, a mishmash of canvases and paints, spilled out onto the driveway, catching the last rays of the setting sun. "Welcome to the neighborhood," I called out, Destiny by my side, her hand in mine. Her smile was warm, inviting as always. Nicholas turned, his eyes lighting up with a spark of recognition, though we'd never met. "Thanks," he replied, his voice smooth like velvet. "I'm Nicholas. I hope you don't mind the occasional late-night painting sessions." Destiny laughed, her laughter like wind chimes. "We'll just have to join you for some wine and watch the magic happen." From that moment, Nicholas became a fixture in our lives. His house, just a stone's throw from ours, became a gallery of his soul, each painting a window into his mind. Destiny was particularly taken by his work, often spending hours discussing the nuances of color and form. I watched, somewhat amused, as she found a new kind of joy in his company. But there was something else, something unspoken that began to weave its way into our lives. It started subtly, like the first drop of rain before a storm. I'd catch Destiny's gaze lingering on Nicholas a little too long, or hear the soft murmur of their laughter from his garden late into the night. One evening, after one of Nicholas's impromptu art shows, Destiny and I returned home. The air was thick with the scent of wine and the unspoken tension between us. "You seem to really enjoy yourself tonight," I said, trying to keep my tone light, but the words felt heavy. Destiny turned to me, her eyes bright but guarded. "Nicholas has such a way with people, doesn't he? He makes you feel alive." I nodded, but inside, a seed of doubt was planted. Was it just the thrill of art? Or was there something more? The question gnawed at me, especially when Destiny's phone would buzz with a message from him, and she'd smile in a way that was just for him. Our life, once a predictable rhythm of work, home, and quiet evenings, began to shift. Nicholas's presence was like a new color on our canvas, vibrant and all-consuming. I found myself watching Destiny more, not with the eyes of a husband, but with the scrutiny of a detective, looking for signs of something I couldn't quite name. And then, one night, after Destiny had fallen asleep, I found myself alone in the living room, the house silent except for the ticking of the clock. I picked up her phone, my heart pounding in my chest. The screen lit up, revealing messages that were too intimate, too personal for just friends. The storm was brewing. Not it was a typical Saturday morning, the kind where the sun filters through the curtains, casting a warm glow over the kitchen table. Destiny had already left for her weekly yoga class, leaving me to enjoy a quiet breakfast alone. The house felt unusually still without her, the silence almost palpable. I decided to take a walk to clear my head of the clutter that had been accumulating there. My feet, as if guided by some unseen force, led me to Nicholas's garden. There he was, his back to me, brush in hand, painting with a focus that seemed to pull the very essence of the scene before him onto the canvas. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the earthy aroma of oil paints. "Morning, Nicholas," I called out, my voice breaking the tranquility. He turned, his face lighting up with that disarming smile of his. "Mark, join me, will you? I could use a second pair of eyes on this piece." We talked about art, the mundane, and everything in between. Nicholas had this way of making the ordinary seem extraordinary. His insights into life's simple pleasures were both profound and comforting. Before I knew it, he was inviting me inside for coffee, his studio an extension of the garden's warmth. Inside, the atmosphere was even more inviting. The walls were adorned with his paintings, each telling a story of color and emotion. We sat at a small, round table, the coffee steaming between us, and I found myself opening up. Work has been draining," I confessed, the words spilling out like water from a cracked dam. "And sometimes, life feels like it's just one monotonous loop after another." Nicholas listened, his eyes never leaving mine, his empathy palpable. "It's like you're stuck in a painting you didn't choose to be part of," he said, his voice soft but resonant. I nodded, feeling a strange relief in sharing these thoughts. And Destiny, she seems so alive around you, so vibrant. It's like I'm watching her from a distance, even when we're together. There was a pause, a moment where the air seemed to thicken with unspoken understanding. Nicholas's gaze held mine, and for a fleeting second, I felt a connection, something new, something that stirred a part of me I hadn't known was there. As I left his house, the sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows that danced across the path back to my home. The walk back was filled with a mix of emotions: guilt, excitement, confusion. When I returned, Destiny was already home, her yoga mat rolled up by the door. She looked up from her book, her eyes searching mine for something I wasn't sure I could give. "How was your walk?" she asked, her voice casual, but there was an edge to it, a hint of something unsaid. "It was enlightening," I replied, the weight of my conversation with Nicholas heavy on my mind. We sat in silence for a moment. The weeks passed, and my visits to Nicholas became more frequent. Destiny, engrossed in her teaching in her own social circle, seemed either oblivious or perhaps chose to ignore the growing bond between Nicholas and me. One evening, after a particularly intense argument with Destiny about our future, I found myself seeking solace in Nicholas's company. The night was filled with wine, laughter, and an undeniable tension that neither of us acknowledged until it was too late. In a moment of vulnerability, I leaned in and kissed Nicholas. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a revelation, a breaking of the dam of my suppressed desires. We ended up in his bed, and for the first time in years, I felt truly alive, yet deeply conflicted. The warmth of his body, the scent of his skin, it was all so intoxicating, so forbidden. The room spun with the intensity of our connection, a whirlwind of passion and confusion. The next morning, the weight of my actions crashed down on me like a ton of bricks. I had betrayed Destiny, not just with another person, but with another man. The guilt was overwhelming, a heavy cloak that seemed to suffocate every breath I took. Yet, amidst the guilt, there was a realization of my own identity, something I had never confronted before. I lay there, watching the morning light filter through the curtains, casting shadows that danced on the walls. Nicholas was still asleep, his breathing steady, his face peaceful. I felt a surge of affection for him, mixed with the bitter taste of betrayal towards Destiny. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and dressed in silence. The house was quiet, the only sound the soft ticking of a clock somewhere in the living room. I needed to think, to process what had happened. As I walked back home, the morning air was cool against my skin, a stark contrast to the warmth I had just left. My mind was a storm of thoughts. How could I reconcile my actions with my love for Destiny? What did this mean for us? For me? Entering our home, I found Destiny in the kitchen, her back to me as she prepared coffee. The aroma filled the room, but it couldn't mask the tension that now hung between us. "Morning," she said, her voice neutral, but I could hear the strain. "Morning," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned, her eyes searching mine, perhaps looking for signs of the night before. "You were out late," she observed, her tone careful. "I needed some time to think," I said, avoiding her gaze, my heart pounding in my chest. Destiny nodded, her expression unreadable. "We need to talk, Mark. About us, about where we're going." I knew this conversation was inevitable, but now, with the weight of my actions, it felt like a precipice. "I agree," I managed, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. As we sat at the kitchen table, the silence was thick, filled with the unsaid. Destiny's gaze was steady, probing, as if she could see right through me to the secrets I held. "I've been feeling disconnected," she started, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "And last night, I realized how much we've drifted apart." Her words were a mirror to my own feelings, yet they felt like accusations. I wanted to confess, to lay bare my night with Nicholas, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I reached across the table, taking her hand. "I know," I said, my voice breaking. "I felt it too. But Destiny, there's something I need to tell you." She looked at me, her eyes wide, waiting. The moment stretched, heavy with the potential to change everything. I've been struggling with something. I continued, the confession on the tip of my tongue. Something about myself, about us. Destiny squeezed my hand, her touch both comforting and accusatory. Whatever it is, Mark, we can face it together. But you have to be honest with me. The truth was there, ready to be spoken, but I hesitated, the fear of losing her, of losing everything. Overwhelming, I took a deep breath, the weight of my confession pressing down on me like the heaviest of burdens. Destiny, I need to tell you about Nicholas. I began, my voice barely above a whisper, each word laced with the agony of betrayal. I've developed feelings for him, feelings that go beyond friendship. And last night, we were together. The room seemed to shrink around us, the air thick with the gravity of my words. Destiny's face, usually so expressive, was a mask of calm, but her eyes, those windows to her soul, flickered with a storm of emotions. I knew, she said finally, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of pain. I've seen the way you look at him, the way you've changed. I hoped it was just a phase, something you'd grow out of, but deep down I knew. Her acceptance was not what I expected. I had braced for anger, for tears, for accusations. But instead, there was this eerie tranquility, as if she had been preparing for this moment. I'm sorry, Destiny. I never meant for this to happen. I pleaded, my heart aching with the truth of my words. She nodded, her gaze dropping to our intertwined hands. I know you didn't. But Mark, we've built a life together, and now it feels like I'm watching it crumble from the sidelines. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the echoes of our past laughter, our shared dreams, now overshadowed by this revelation. I need time, Destiny said after what felt like an eternity. Time to think, to process all of this. I'm going to stay at my sister's for a while. The thought of her leaving, even temporarily, felt like a physical blow. Destiny, please, let's talk about this. We can work through it together. I implored, desperation seeping into my tone. She stood up, her movements deliberate, as if each step was a decision made. I need space, Mark. Space to understand what this means for us, for our marriage. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk. Watching her pack a small bag, the reality of our situation sank in. The home we had built together now felt like a hollow shell, echoing with the absence of her presence. As she walked out the door, the finality of her departure hit me like a wave. I was left alone with my thoughts, the silence of our home now a deafening roar. The paintings on the walls, once vibrant with life and color, seemed to mock me with their frozen scenes of joy and connection. I sat there, in the quiet aftermath, the weight of my actions and the uncertainty of our future pressing down on me. Would Destiny forgive me? Could our marriage survive this? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more daunting than the last. The day stretched on, each tick of the clock a reminder of the time slipping away, time that Destiny was using to decide the fate of our relationship. I wandered through the house, touching the things that reminded me of her. The book she was reading, the yoga mat by the door, the coffee mug still half full in the kitchen. Night fell, and with it, a profound loneliness settled over me. I lay on our bed, the side where she usually slept, cold and empty, and I wondered about the path ahead. Would she return, or was this the beginning of the end? The uncertainty was a new kind of pain, one that gnawed at my insides, leaving me raw and exposed. In the darkness, I whispered to the empty room, I'm sorry, Destiny. I love you, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. But the only response was the quiet hum of the night and the distant sound of a car driving away, taking with it the love of my life, leaving me to face the consequences of my actions alone. Days turned into weeks, each one a slow, agonizing stretch of time. Destiny returned, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of the turmoil we'd been through. We sat down in the living room, the familiar couch feeling like a foreign land now. She looked different, somehow lighter, as if she had shed some of the weight she'd been carrying. I've been to counseling, Mark, she began, her voice steady, eyes locked onto mine. I've been struggling not just with us, but with myself. I felt trapped, not just in our marriage, but in my role as a teacher, as a wife. I've been searching for something I couldn't quite name. I nodded, the silence between us thick with the unsaid. Her words echoed my own internal battles, the ones I'd been wrestling with since that night with Nicholas. I've come to a decision, Destiny continued, her hands clasped in her lap. I propose we try an open marriage. It's not about giving up on us, but about giving ourselves the chance to explore who we are outside of this relationship. Maybe, just maybe, it could help us find our way back to each other. The proposal hit me like a shockwave. It was the last thing I expected. My mind raced, torn between the love I still held for Destiny and the newfound freedom I'd tasted with Nicholas. Destiny, I don't know what to say. I managed, my voice a mix of confusion and relief. I've been struggling, too, with my identity, with my desires. That night with Nicholas, it wasn't just about the physical. It was about seeking a part of myself I'd denied for too long. She reached out, her hand finding mine, a gesture that felt both familiar and foreign. I know, Mark. I've seen the change in you. I felt it in myself, too. Maybe this could be our way to grow, not apart, but together in a new way. The room felt charged with the gravity of our conversation. Here we were, at a crossroads, not just of our marriage, but of our very selves. I need time to think about this, I said, the words heavy with the weight of our future. It's not just about us. It's about what this means for me, for you, for Nicholas. Destiny nodded, her eyes searching mine for a sign of where this might lead. Take all the time you need, Mark. I'm not asking for an immediate answer. I just want us to be honest with each other, to explore our truths. The conversation lingered in the air, a palpable entity. I stood up, feeling the need to move, to process. Walking to the window, I looked out at the garden, where Nicholas's presence had first stirred something within me. I've always loved you, Destiny, I said, turning back to her. And I still do. But I've also discovered parts of myself that I can't ignore anymore. This proposal, it's terrifying, but it might be the key to understanding who we really are. She stood, joining me by the window, her shoulder brushing against mine. I'm scared too, Mark, but I've realized that fear shouldn't dictate our lives. We've built something beautiful, and maybe, just maybe, we can build something new, something that includes all of who we are. We stood there, watching the evening light fade, each lost in our thoughts, yet together in our uncertainty. The decision loomed large, not just about the structure of our marriage, but about the essence of our identities. I'll talk to Nicholas, I said finally, the words tasting like a commitment to a new chapter. We need to figure out what this means for all of us. Destiny squeezed my hand, a silent agreement to the path we might take. And I'll continue with counseling. We'll navigate this together, Mark, whatever the outcome. As she left, the house felt different, not empty, but filled with the potential of change. I sat back down, the weight of the decision pressing on me. What would I choose? The comfort of the known, or the risk of the unknown? And I chose to embrace both my love for Destiny and my need for self-discovery. It was a decision that felt like standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into the unknown. Destiny and I sat down, our hands clasped, a silent agreement to navigate this new path together. I've been thinking a lot. I started, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside. About us, about what we want, and who we are. And I believe we can find a way to honor both our love and our individual journeys. Destiny's eyes, always so expressive, held a mix of hope and fear. I agree, Mark. We've been through so much, and I've realized that our love doesn't have to be confined by traditional boundaries. We can redefine what it means for us. We discussed the concept of an open marriage, setting clear boundaries, ensuring mutual respect. It wasn't about giving up on each other, but about giving ourselves the freedom to explore parts of ourselves we had long suppressed. I want us to grow closer, not apart, Destiny said, her voice firm. This could be a new chapter for us, one where we both breathe, where we both live authentically. The days that followed were filled with conversations, some difficult, others enlightening. We agreed that Nicholas would not just be a lover, but a friend, someone who had helped me unlock a part of myself I didn't know existed. His role in our lives was now more defined, more integrated. As the weeks turned into months, our relationship evolved. Destiny and I found a new rhythm, one that allowed for personal exploration while still maintaining the core of our bond. We continued to live together, our home now a sanctuary of understanding and growth. One evening, we decided to host a small dinner party. It was our way of celebrating this new chapter, of showing that we could all coexist in harmony. Nicholas was, of course, invited. The evening was filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the warmth of good company. Nicholas brought over one of his latest paintings, a vibrant piece that seemed to capture the essence of our evolving relationship. "This one's for you both," he said, presenting it with a smile that held no judgment, only affection. Destiny admired it, her eyes reflecting the colors. "It's beautiful, Nicholas. It feels like it tells our story." We sat around the table. The food was simple yet rich with flavors, much like our new arrangement. There was a moment when Destiny's hand found mine under the table, a silent reassurance that we were in this together. "I've been thinking," I said, looking at both Destiny and Nicholas, "about what this new chapter holds for us. For me, it's about understanding myself better, about not letting fear dictate my life." Destiny nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "And for me, it's about freedom within our love. It's about knowing that I can be myself and still come home to you, Mark. To us." Nicholas, ever the observer, chimed in. "And for me, it's about being part of something unique, something that defies convention. It's about friendship, art, and love in its many forms." The night stretched on, filled with stories, laughter, and a profound sense of peace. We had found a way to live authentically, respecting each other's paths. As the dinner party wound down, I looked around at the people I loved, feeling a profound gratitude for the journey we were on. Destiny leaned over, her voice soft. "What does this new chapter hold for you, Mark?" I squeezed her hand, looking into her eyes, then at Nicholas, who was now helping with the dishes, his laughter mingling with the clatter of plates. "I think it holds growth, love, and a lot of surprises. But most importantly, it holds us together in whatever form that takes." As the guests left and the house quieted, Destiny and I sat on the couch. The painting Nicholas gifted us now hung above the fireplace, a testament to our journey. "We're doing this, aren't we?" she asked, her head resting on my shoulder. "Yes, we are," I replied. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.